Hello everybody, my name is Colt, this is Gone Hollow Minis, and welcome to another Tarnished Tuesday. First things first, I wanted to apologize for missing last week's upload. You may have noticed that the weekend before last week's upload was Easter, so I was spending some time with the family and didn't have time to record another Tarnished Tuesday. But we're back this week, and we're actually getting kind of close to finishing this first Weeping Peninsula boxed set. What we've got on the painting table this week is a winged and a scaly Misbegotten. Yep, that's right, more Misbegotten. We got a bit of a break with the last upload with the characters that we painted, but yep, we're back to the Muppets. Now, I don't want to complain too hard. These are still great sculpts and do a really good job of capturing the in-game look of the Misbegotten. It's just unfortunate that the Weeping Peninsula is ostensibly mostly Muppets. And in the end, there are gameplay differences in how each of these Misbegotten play. They're all very fast and very mobile, but they each have different attack patterns and weapon ranges. But it is also worth keeping in mind that this is meant to be an introductory box. The Realm of the Grafted King box, kind of the standard Limgrave section of the game, it does have a lot more enemy variety, so if miniature variety is what you're looking for, maybe start there instead. That said though, I don't really want to just give you guys the same skin, fur, and feather recipes that I've already talked about like 2 or 3 times already. I will try to make sure to throw up which paints I'm using onto the screen with a little handy overlay, but other than that, we're going to keep the painting detail kinda slim. And that's because I wanted to take this chance to get a little bit more in-depth on something that we've kind of brushed over already, and that's the difference between board gaming minis and wargaming minis. See, within the miniature painting hobby, a lot of board gaming minis kinda get a bad rap. It's synonymous with soft details, softer plastic, and minis that just don't offer a lot of artistic expression. And to a degree, that's fair, unfortunately. Wargaming minis are kind of the standard when it comes to customization and artistic expression. Since you're actually building the miniatures, you have a hand in the entire process from sprue to finished miniature. You can customize things how you want, kit bash things, sculpt new weapons, details, armor, everything that you want to make your miniatures look the way you want them to. And on top of that, the actual sculpting reflects that ethos. Look at something like a Space Marine, it is designed to be painted. The geometry is fairly simple, with shapes that you can easily pick out and understand how to highlight and shade. The onus is placed on you as the builder and painter to bring that miniature to life, which is why you see such mind-blowing miniatures in competitions like Golden Demon. Not only are the miniatures designed to look like something, they're designed to really let you run wild with how you want them to look, what setting you want them to be in, and how you want the miniature to feel overall. By contrast, board game minis are just kind of in a different world. For one, they're specifically designed to be able to be played with gray. And when you're just playing a board game with friends instead of going to a tournament, that's totally understandable. But it impacts the sculpting process because they have to look good and be recognizable without a single drop of paint on them. And on a similar note, a lot of them, such as Elden Ring, are specifically designed to look like something that already exists in a game that's already fully textured, animated, 3D modeled, and that players are already very intimately familiar with. Like really, as you're playing Elden Ring, you smack a lot of these guys around. We can argue about soft details and soft plastic all day, but I just really think it's a totally different approach to miniature painting. One of the side effects of this though is that the sculptors for board game minis tend to make everything very textured and sculpted. There aren't very many flat spots on these models, and even the flatter areas still have some texture and sculpting to them to make them look natural. One comparison that I found myself making between these Misbegotten and Warhammer minis is with the Skaven. All of the furred and feathered parts on these Misbegotten are fully detailed and fully sculpted. Every lock of matted fur and every stripe on every feather is molded directly into the model itself. Compare that to something like a Skaven model that has as much, if not more fur, but less of it is sculpted in. There's just enough to give the vague idea that certain parts of the model are intended to be fur, but other than that, it's up to the painter's interpretation. This is kinda what I mean when I say that board game miniature sculptors have to find a really careful balance between readability and recognizability on the tabletop, while also giving their players a decent and fulfilling painting experience. While the density of the details on board game minis can be seen as limiting creativity, it also gives us a really nice roadmap to work from. The painting process becomes much less about where to work in specific colors, textures, and blends, and more about how to highlight the sculpting that's already there. Which is why that I've found so much value in using dry brushing and washes on board game minis. Both of these techniques I've found to be a little bit heavy-handed if used incorrectly on Warhammer minis. But here on a miniature that's so densely detailed it works with the sculpting, easily bringing out and drawing attention to a lot of the work that went into making this miniature before it even got to me. I can still totally see how it might feel like that's limiting your creativity though. After all, with that much sculpted detail, the furred parts kind of have to be fur and the feathered parts kind of have to be feathers. but I still kind of like thinking of it as the opportunity to try to recreate something from an existing universe in an existing setting, as opposed to just making my own Space Marines. In other words, I don't think of it as a lesser type of miniature painting, just a different one. But 5-minute rant aside, let's see how these guys finally turned out and get them on the shelf with the rest of our little muppets. Like I said, if you're following along, you are getting remarkably close to finishing the first milestone on this massive Elden Ring journey. We are finally through the horde of muppets that SFG sent our way, and we're through the first wave of stray dogs. Don't worry, there will be more of those. But from here, our path is pretty clear. We have 2 more characters to paint up in the Bandit and the Prophet, and then once those are done, it's on to the big bad himself, the Leonine Misbegotten. And with that, we will finally be done with the first box of the Elden Ring board game. So leave a like if you enjoyed, drop a comment if you have any questions, subscribe so you don't miss the next Tarnished Tuesday, and until we meet again, friends, be safe, be kind, and don't you dare go hollow.